Hey everybody, I'm Lee Turley, and this is Marcus Whitney joining us today. Thanks, Marcus, for taking time out to interview with us and um, share with us your thoughts. If you want to go ahead and just dive in and tell us a little bit about your journey to entrepreneurship and your entrepreneurial background, and then tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with Moon Toast.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. As far as my journey, as an entrepreneur, I think it's mostly been just always being dissatisfied and a malcontent person, generally speaking. Either with the scenario I was in my own life, or the things I was seeing inside of organizations that I was working in. I don't think I set out necessarily to be, a C-level executive, founder, et cetera. But I just think I ran into situations where I went and I was working at companies, and I saw things that I wanted to change, and would end up running into, all sorts of red tape, bureaucracy, and things like that. And also, I was rather immature at the time, and so the way that I approached, kind of managing up to make those changes happen wasn't very effective. So it just kind of led me into smaller organizations where there was less red tape, and that ended up moving me into more entrepreneurial positions. Eventually, I think there was no place else to go but to just become the founder and have the full, suite of experiences that go with that.
Great. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Moon Toast and how that came about.
Sure. So what we're doing today is Moontoast is a social commerce platform focused and specializing in distributed commerce, which is taking commerce opportunities everywhere via the web, and meeting the consumer where they are rather than trying to drive them back to an e-commerce destination. That's not how it started. It started out as this knowledge sharing marketplace, as an idea, and we've had a lot of learning over the course of the time that Moontoast has been alive, about kind of where things are going. It's also been a very fast evolving time for things like social networking and commerce. Everything from Facebook to Groupon and everything in between there has happened, since Moontoast, was first formed. Facebook wasn't launched, but I mean all the changes in terms of the platform. And so, we learned a lot through taking different products to market, and now have hit on a suite of products that really works. And when I say works, I mean that the market likes and is willing to buy.
Yeah.
That's fun. It's fun to be kind of at the forefront of something that looks like it has a pretty long and exciting runway.
So how did you? It was. I mean, Moon Toast was your first endeavor outside of the corporate situation, right?
I wouldn't quite say that. I mean, I say Emma was really my first entrepreneurial experience that was meaningful.
Okay.
Because when I was there, there were 5 or 6 employees there, and so there, it was a
Wow.
very flat organization at the time in 2003, and everybody had a ton of authority and a ton of responsibility. So while there were 2 founders, everybody had a huge amount of responsibility,
Yeah.
and room to move. And so I would really call that my first real entrepreneurial experience that had meaningful growth and revenue around it. And then yeah, since then I've done 2 things. When I left Emma, the first thing I did was Remarkable Wit, which was what I called a venture technology firm, that I started really because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be involved in ventures, and work with startup founders. And I also knew that I wanted to bring what I had learned as a technologist, to those founders to help them get their tech ideas off the ground.
Okay. So what was it? Tell me about that initial, I guess, decision and mindset from when you're like, okay, it's time to make the switch from Emma at the time, which had, when you left, I mean, they had grown fairly large, like 100 employees or something, right? Um,
No, it hadn't quite gotten there. It got to about 50 employees when I
yeah.
left. It was right before they moved into the building on 8th.
Okay.
So
But
it was my last day was the end of August 2007.
okay.
So
But
so
big
yes,
nonetheless.
yeah, no, there was
Yeah.
definitely significant growth from the time that I started to when I left.
So what was it? What was it like? What was going through your head when you made that switch and when you finally were like, okay, it's time?
I think I mean I remember the biggest general feeling being that I had done what I could reasonably do there, and that my ability to affect meaningful change was at the very least going to be slowed down dramatically while the company was going through its growth period. And I think that was the right call. I think it was the right time. I think I was ready to do a lot more innovating than Emma could have sustained at that point in time. It was a very healthy cash flow positive business that was in a growth phase for itself, which is evident because they've more than doubled the staff and
Yeah.
revenue from that time. And it would have. I started to notice some of the feelings that came up in previous jobs of being restless and you know irritated, and not at the people. I mean, these are people who this is some of my best friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just the scenario. You know what I mean? Just kind of where I was, and so that was the main feeling at that time.
Yeah. And did you have anything prepared when it was time to leave, or you just knew that it was the right thing to do to rather than be restless to go out and set on your own?
I had gone on a work trip to Portland for 5 days and had a lot of time to think about it. And when I got back, I took Clint Smith to coffee, and we both knew it was pretty clear and obvious that it was the right time. And
Yeah.
and in addition, we had also brought in other people into the company who were frankly better than me at some of the things that Emma really needed at that point in time. So it was it was like you've built out the platform, you've helped build a team, you've helped kind of do all the things that were necessary, and at that point, really the next thing in my path was to go be a founder of something,
Yeah.
and kind of learn the lessons that Will and Clint had already learned. And we had that very same conversation a year before that time, but it really wasn't the right time. But at the 4 year mark, it was the right time.